Hello everyone, I am here to tell the story of Manchester United's treble-winning season while you sleep. Before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Comment where you're from and what time you are watching this at. Now turn off your lights, get comfortable in bed and relax. Manchester, 1998. The streets of this football-mad city buzzed with anticipation. A new season was about to begin, and at the heart of it all was Manchester United, a club with an insatiable hunger for success. The previous campaign had been a bitter disappointment. Arsenal, under Arsene Wenger, had stormed to the Premier League title, ending United's dominance. Not only had they won the league, but they also clinched the FA Cup, securing a domestic double. For Sir Alex Ferguson, it was a wake-up call. Manchester United had been knocked off their perch, and something had to change. United had been close, agonizingly close, but in football close wasn't good enough. The squad had quality, but it lacked something, an extra edge, more depth, and perhaps, most importantly, a winning mentality that could withstand the pressures of a grueling campaign on multiple fronts. Ferguson wasn't one to sit back and dwell on failure. He was a man of action, a man who thrived on challenges, and in the summer of 1998, he set out to build a team capable of reclaiming English football's biggest prize and going even further, conquering Europe. United's recruitment was swift, calculated, and ruthless. Ferguson knew exactly what he wanted, and he got it. 3 signings. 3 players who would define the season to come. First, Jaap Stam. The towering Dutch defender arrived from PSV Eindhoven for a then record fee for a defender, £10.75 million. Stam was a colossus, strong, fast and aggressive. He was the ideal replacement for the aging Gary Pallister. With Stam at the back, United had a leader, a warrior who would anchor the defense. Next, Jesper Blomqvist, the Swedish winger, was brought in from Parma, adding depth and competition on the flanks. Ferguson had long admired his technical ability and work rate, and with Ryan Giggs occasionally struggling with injuries, Blomqvist would be a crucial asset in United's wide play. And then there was Dwight Yorke, the smiling assassin, the man who would change everything, signed from Aston Villa for £12.6 million. Yorke's arrival was met with excitement, but also uncertainty. Where would he fit in? United already had Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Would Yorke be the missing piece of the puzzle, or would his arrival unsettle an already competitive forward line? Ferguson, however, had no doubts. He saw something in Yorke, a player who wasn't just a goal scorer, but a playmaker, a link-up man, a footballer with an infectious enthusiasm for the game. With these 3 signings, United's squad was complete, but having players on paper was one thing, making them gel was another. Manchester United's squad entering the 1998-99 season was one of the most well-balanced in the club's history. In goal, Peter Schmeichel remained the undisputed number 1. The Great Dane was entering his final season at the club, but his presence was as commanding as ever. His shot-stopping ability, leadership, and ability to organize the defense made him irreplaceable. The backline saw a mix of experience and fresh talent. Gary Neville was now United's first-choice right-back, his defensive intelligence and reliability making him one of Ferguson's most trusted players. On the opposite flank, Dennis Irwin, the ever-reliable Irishman, remained as solid as ever. Between them stood a rotation of defenders, Jaap Stam, Ronnie Johnson, and Wes Brown, each bringing their own qualities to the team. Midfield was United's heartbeat. Roy Keane, the captain, was back. After missing a large portion of the previous season due to injury, Keane was determined to lead his team to glory. His presence alone lifted the squad, his intensity driving standards higher. Alongside him, Ferguson had options. Paul Scholes, the magician, capable of scoring and creating, Nicky Butt, the tireless workhorse, and David Beckham, still recovering from his infamous red card at the World Cup, but eager to silence the critics. On the left, Ryan Giggs remained United's X-factor. Injuries had plagued him at times, but when fit, he was unstoppable. His dribbling, pace and creativity gave United an attacking outlet like no other. Blomqvist would provide backup, ensuring depth in a key position. Then up front, Ferguson faced a selection headache. Andy Cole and Teddy Sheringham had never truly seen eye to eye, their personal differences affecting their chemistry on the pitch. Sheringham, the experienced campaigner, was a thinking forward, a player who thrived on movement and intelligence. Cole, on the other hand, was pure instinct, always in the right place at the right time. With Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the ever-reliable super sub, and the new arrival, Dwight York, Ferguson had a wealth of attacking options, but how would he fit them all together? Ferguson had a vision. He wanted fast, attacking football. United would play on the front foot, taking the game to their opponents, both in England and in Europe. Defensively, the plan was simple: strong, disciplined, but not overly conservative. Stam's arrival meant United could play a higher line, pressing teams in their own half. Neville and Irwin would provide width from the back, overlapping when needed. Midfield was where United would dominate. Keane was the enforcer, the leader, the player who set the tempo. Scholes and Beckham were United's creators, delivering pinpoint passes, deadly crosses, and long-range goals. Giggs, when fit, would be the difference maker, carrying the ball at pace, beating defenders with ease. Up front, Ferguson wanted a partnership, a duo that could complement each other, and that's where York came in. From the moment he arrived, something clicked between him and Cole. Their understanding was almost telepathic. They played with joy, with freedom, and with an unshakable confidence that would define the season. The road ahead wasn't easy. United had to navigate a brutal fixture schedule, competing in the Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, and Champions League. The demands were relentless. Arsenal were the reigning champions, and looked even stronger. Wenger's side had the defensive steel of Tony Adams, and the attacking brilliance of Dennis Bergkamp and Nicolas Anelka. Chelsea were emerging as contenders, and Liverpool, led by Michael Owen, were beginning to show promise. Then there was Europe. United had fallen short in recent seasons. From the very first whistle, there was a sense of purpose and intensity that had been missing the previous season. Sir Alex Ferguson had built a squad capable of fighting on multiple fronts, but now they had to prove it. Every game mattered. Every point was crucial. In the Premier League, the challenge was clear: reclaim the title from Arsenal. In Europe, expectations were even higher. United had come close before, but close was never enough. This time, they wanted to go all the way. The pressure was immense, but Ferguson thrived on it. He relished the challenge, and so did his players. United's league campaign kicked off with a tough test against Leicester City at Old Trafford. It wasn't the start they had hoped for. Despite dominating possession, they found themselves trailing after a defensive lapse allowed Leicester to take the lead. The clock ticked down. Frustration grew, but then, with the game slipping away, a moment of brilliance. David Beckham, still under scrutiny after his World Cup red card, stepped up to take a free kick from 25 yards out. He curled the ball over the wall and into the top corner. The stadium erupted. A 2-draw wasn't the perfect start, but it was a reminder of Beckham's ability to change a game in an instant. The early weeks of the season were inconsistent. A thrilling 4-1 win over Charlton Athletic, showcased United's attacking firepower, but defensive frailties were exposed in a 3-0 defeat to Arsenal at Highbury. It was a sobering reminder that the champions wouldn't give up their crown easily. But Ferguson wasn't worried. He had built this squad for the long haul, and he knew it would take time for everything to click. One of the biggest talking points in the early part of the season was the growing partnership between Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole. At first it wasn't clear how Ferguson would use Yorke. With Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer already in the squad, rotation seemed inevitable. But from the moment Yorke and Cole played together, something clicked. They were electric. Yorke's movement, intelligence, and link-up play combined perfectly with Cole's instinctive finishing. It wasn't just about goals, it was about understanding. They seemed to know where the other was at all times, exchanging passes with a fluidity that was almost telepathic. Their chemistry was on full display in a 5-1 demolition of Wimbledon. Yorke scored twice, Cole once. The two of them tore through the opposition defense with ease. Ferguson had found his strike partnership. The Champions League group stage drew United into a daunting group: Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Brøndby. It was the group of death. European success had eluded United in recent years, and Ferguson knew that to win the competition, they had to prove themselves against the best. The first game was a blockbuster: United versus Barcelona at Old Trafford. What followed was one of the greatest games in Champions League history. United stormed into a 2-0 lead within 25 minutes, with Giggs and Scholes finding the net. The atmosphere was electric, but Barcelona responded. Rivaldo, one of the most gifted players in the world, pulled one back before half-time. Then came the madness. Early in the second half, Beckham restored United's 2-goal advantage with a stunning free kick. The stadium exploded, but Barcelona refused to back down. A penalty converted by Luis Enrique made it 3-2. Then another penalty, this time for a handball. It was a breathtaking contest, thrilling, chaotic, and a reminder of just how tough this group would be. United's next European test was away to Bayern Munich. Another classic. United led through a Dwight Yorke strike, but Bayern equalized late, denying Ferguson's men a famous away win. After 2 games, 2 points. It wasn't ideal, but it was clear that this United side wasn't afraid to attack, no matter the opponent. Back in the Premier League, the title race was already shaping up to be a 2-horse race. Arsenal, under Wenger, were a machine. Disciplined, well-drilled, and lethal on the counter-attack. They weren't just the defending champions, they were better than ever. For United, every dropped point felt costly. A frustrating 2-2 draw against Southampton saw them lose ground, but they responded with a commanding 4-1 win over Everton. Then came one of the biggest games of the season, United versus Arsenal at Old Trafford. The build-up was intense. Keane versus Vieira in midfield. The pace of Anelka versus the strength of Stam. It was a clash of titans. The game itself was a war. Arsenal, as always, were compact, disciplined, and dangerous. United pressed hard but struggled to break them down. In the 75th minute, the breakthrough, a corner was swung in, the ball broke loose, and there was Roy Keane, United's captain, their warrior, rifling the ball into the net. Old Trafford erupted, a 1-0 win, a statement victory. United were here to fight for the title. As autumn turned to winter, United's form improved. The team had gelled. Keane was dominant, Beckham was delivering world-class performances, and the Yorke-Cole partnership was terrorizing defenses. A 3-2 win away at Liverpool was a defining moment. Liverpool had taken an early lead, but United responded with resilience. Yorke-Cole and Scholes all found the net, securing a crucial victory. The FA Cup campaign had also begun, and United made no mistake in their opening fixtures. A 2-0 win over Middlesbrough set them on their way. Ferguson wasn't just focused on the league in Europe. He wanted everything. December was brutal. The fixture list was relentless, with games every few days. But United thrived under the pressure. A crushing 6-2 win over Leicester, a 3-0 dismantling of Aston Villa, and a hard-fought 2-2 draw against Chelsea kept them firmly in the title race. By the time the new year arrived, one thing was clear. This United side was different. There was a hunger, a belief, a resilience that suggested something special was brewing. They had conquered the first half of the season, but the real tests were still to come. The road to glory was long, and the challenges ahead were greater than ever. But Ferguson and his men were ready. The treble dream was alive. Manchester United returned for pre-season with a point to prove. The previous campaign had ended in frustration, and the message from Sir Alex Ferguson was clear. This season, nothing less than total commitment would be accepted. Training sessions were intense, players pushing themselves to the limit as they prepared for the long road ahead. Ferguson, along with his assistant Steve McLaren, introduced tactical drills designed to integrate the new signings, while the fitness staff ensured that every player was in peak condition before the season began. The team traveled to Scandinavia for a series of friendlies, giving Ferguson a chance to test different formations and partnerships. Jaap Stam slotted into the defense seamlessly, his commanding presence giving United much-needed authority at the back. Jesper Blomqvist showed flashes of skill, his ability to take on defenders and deliver precise crosses, adding another dimension to the attack. Dwight York, the marquee summer signing, took a little longer to settle. His natural talent was undeniable, but Ferguson knew it would take time for him to develop an understanding with his new teammates. The squad returned to England with a mixture of optimism and urgency. Ferguson knew they were ready, but he also understood that pre-season results meant nothing. Once the competitive matches began, the real test would come under the lights of the Premier League, and Manchester United needed a strong start. The opening match of the season was at home to Leicester City. Old Trafford was buzzing, filled with expectation, the air thick with excitement. United dominated possession, moving the ball with speed and precision, but they struggled to break down a well-organized Leicester defense. The visitors took the lead through Tony Cottee, punishing a rare lapse in United's backline. It was a frustrating start, but Ferguson's men responded. David Beckham, eager to silence his critics after his infamous red card at the World Cup, delivered a pinpoint cross in the dying moments. Ryan Giggs rose highest, heading the ball into the net, salvaging a 2-2 draw. It wasn't the statement win United had hoped for, but the players remained confident. The following week, they travelled to Upton Park to face West Ham, determined to put things right. Once again, they dominated possession. Once again, they created chances, and once again, they were left frustrated. West Ham's goalkeeper Shaka Hislop produced a series of stunning saves, denying shot after shot. The final whistle blew, another 0-0 draw. 2 games, 2 points. Not the start they had planned. Ferguson, never one to panic, remained calm. He gathered the squad together, reminding them that the season was a marathon, not a sprint. He knew his team had the quality to recover. What they needed was a spark, something, or someone, to ignite their campaign. That spark came in the form of Dwight York. York had arrived at Old Trafford with a reputation as a goal-scorer, but it was in these early weeks of the season that his true impact began to take shape. Ferguson saw something special in him, an intelligence in his movement, an ability to read the game that went beyond just finishing chances. The challenge was finding the right partner for him in attack. Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer all offered different qualities, but Ferguson wanted a pairing that could click naturally, almost instinctively. The breakthrough came in training. Ferguson had paired York and Cole together in small-sided games, and what he witnessed was undeniable. The two forwards played as if they had been teammates for years. One would drift wide, the other would make a run into the box. One would drop deep to receive the ball, the other would sprint in behind the defense. It was effortless, it was instinctive, and it was exactly what Manchester United needed. Their first real test as a partnership came against Charlton Athletic at Old Trafford. From the opening whistle, it was clear something special was happening. York and Cole linked up brilliantly, their movement leaving defenders chasing shadows. York opened his account with a poacher's finish, tapping in a low cross from Giggs. Minutes later, Cole added his name to the score sheet, curling a precise shot past the goalkeeper after a clever 1-2 with York. United ran out 4 mine winners, and suddenly, the mood around Old Trafford shifted. Ferguson had found his front two. As the weeks went by, the York-Cole partnership only grew stronger. It wasn't just their goals that made them so effective, it was their understanding. They played with a telepathic connection, knowing where the other would be before even looking. York's ability to hold up the ball allowed Cole to make runs in behind. Cole's sharp movement created space for York to exploit. Defenders couldn't cope. They would try to mark one, only for the other to slip free and punish them. Beyond tactics, what made their partnership so devastating was their friendship. York and Cole weren't just teammates on the pitch, they were inseparable off it. They shared jokes in the dressing room, traveled together, and built a bond that translated into their performances. It was a reminder that football wasn't just about ability, chemistry mattered. The best teams weren't just collections of talented individuals, they were groups that understood each other, that trusted each other, that played for each other. That chemistry extended beyond just the forwards. United's midfield had begun to find its rhythm, with Roy Keane leading by example, driving standards higher in every training session. Paul Scholes was growing in confidence, dictating play with his pinpoint passing. Beckham, playing with a chip on his shoulder after his World Cup heartbreak, was delivering world-class performances, whipping in crosses that strikers dreamed of attacking. At the back, Stam had settled into his role as the defensive leader. His physicality and composure gave United the solidity they had been missing in previous seasons. Next to him, Ronnie Johnson and Gary Neville provided balance, while Dennis Irwin's experience gave the backline a calming presence. And behind them all, Peter Schmeichel remained the ever-commanding figure, his booming voice echoing across the pitch, demanding perfection from those in front of him. As September arrived, United's early season struggles were already a distant memory. The team was clicking, momentum was building, and with York and Cole leading the line, United had found the spark that would set their season on fire. But the journey was only just beginning. The challenges ahead would be even greater, the expectations even higher, and to achieve their ultimate goal, they would need more than just talent. They would need resilience, they would need belief, and most of all, they would need each other. The Champions League draw had been made, and Manchester United found themselves placed in one of the most challenging groups imaginable. Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Brøndby, 3 very different teams, but each presenting their own obstacles. Ferguson knew that if his side wanted to progress, they would have to fight for every single point. There would be no easy games, no room for mistakes. Preparations were intense, the squad was confident, but Ferguson drilled into them the importance of discipline. European football required a different approach. Games were often more tactical, more methodical. The pace of the Premier League was relentless, but in Europe, teams could punish even the slightest lapse in concentration. The manager had been here before. He understood what was needed, and he made sure his players did too. The first game of the group stage was against Barcelona at Old Trafford. European nights under the floodlights had always been special, but this felt even bigger. The Spanish giants arrived with a squad packed full of talent. Rivaldo, Luis Enrique, Sonny Anderson, all capable of changing a game in an instant. United had the firepower to match them, but the question was whether they could impose themselves against such a formidable opponent. From the opening whistle, the game exploded into life. United started on the front foot, moving the ball quickly, pressing high up the pitch. The fans barely had time to settle before the breakthrough came. Giggs collected the ball on the left, danced past his marker, and delivered a perfect cross. Yorke met it with a towering header, sending Old Trafford into chaos. The noise was deafening. The lead was deserved. United weren't done. Moments later, another attack swept forward. This time it was Scholes who found himself in space, on the edge of the box. A quick 1-2 with Cole opened up just enough room, and his strike rifled into the net. 2-0. United were flying, but Barcelona weren't beaten. Great teams never are. They responded with patience, controlling possession, moving United's defense around. Just before half-time, they found a way through. A pass split the back line, and Anderson finished clinically past Schmeichel. The game had shifted. After the break, Barcelona came out with renewed urgency. Rivaldo, at the heart of everything, began to dictate play. It didn't take long for the equalizer to come. A quick break down the right, a low cross, and suddenly it was 2. The momentum had swung. United refused to fold. They pushed back, searching for another opening. With 20 minutes to go, they found one. Beckham, who had been relatively quiet, stepped up to a free kick from 30 yards. The ball curled over the wall, dipped perfectly, and slammed into the net. The stadium erupted. United were ahead again, but the night had one final twist. A penalty was awarded to Barcelona. After a handball inside the box, Schmeichel guessed the right way, diving low, but the strike was too powerful. 3-0 since 3. The final whistle blew, and the players stood motionless, exhausted. It had been a game of breathtaking quality, a spectacle that would be talked about for years. But for Ferguson, there was little time to reflect. 1 point at home meant that United now had to find results elsewhere. The battle was only beginning. The trip to Brøndby was next. On paper, it was the most winnable fixture in the group, but Ferguson refused to allow any complacency. He reminded his players of what was at stake. The message was clear: get the job done. United wasted no time, asserting themselves. From the start, they played with confidence, their movement sharp, their passing precise. It wasn't long before they had the lead. Beckham delivered a cross from deep, and Cole finished first time. 1-0. A second goal followed quickly, Yorke showing his class with a delicate chip over the keeper. Brøndby struggled to keep up, and by the time Giggs added a third, the game was effectively over. United had their first win of the group stage. Back in Manchester, attention turned to Bayern Munich. The German champions were disciplined, physically strong, and incredibly efficient. Their squad was filled with experienced players: Oliver Kahn, Lothar Matthäus, Stefan Effenberg, all leaders in their own right. United knew this would be one of their toughest tests yet. The match played out like a game of chess, each side looking for weaknesses, each moment carrying weight. Bayern struck first, taking the lead through a well-worked move that sliced through United's defense. But once again, Yorke and Cole stepped up when it mattered. A quick interchange, a flick past the last defender, and Yorke slotted the ball past Kahn. The equalizer injected belief. United pushed forward, and soon after, they found another breakthrough. A surging run from Keane opened space. Scholes picked up the pass, and with his usual calmness, he finished to put United ahead. Bayern, though, refused to go away. They kept coming, forcing United to defend deeper and deeper. In the dying moments, they found their way through. A hopeful cross, a scramble in the box, and suddenly the ball was in the net. 2-2. Another hard-fought point. The group was finally balanced. 3 games played, 3 draws. United had shown they could go toe-to-toe with 2 of Europe's best, but they needed wins. The return fixture against Brøndby was next, and Ferguson saw it as a chance to take control of their destiny. From the first whistle, United dominated. Brøndby simply couldn't cope with the movement and precision of United's attack. Goals came from all angles. Yorke, Cole, Scholes, Giggs. By the final whistle, the scoreboard read 5-0. It was a statement win. The group was still unpredictable, but United had given themselves a platform. The performances had been thrilling, the goals unforgettable, but Ferguson knew there was still work to do. With Barcelona and Bayern still to come, qualification was far from certain. The hardest challenges were still ahead. The season was relentless. Every game carried weight. Every competition demanded attention. Manchester United had already been tested in Europe, but now, with the domestic cups in full swing and the league race heating up, the true depth of the squad would be revealed. The FA Cup had always held a special place in Ferguson's plans. It wasn't just another competition, it was tradition, history, a trophy that defined English football. United had lifted it 4 times under Ferguson already, and he wanted more, but the demands of the season meant rotation was essential. The early rounds saw changes to the lineup. Younger players were given their chance, and they didn't disappoint. One of the biggest revelations was Wes Brown. The academy graduate had been on the fringes for some time, but with injuries forcing Ferguson to adjust his defense, Brown stepped up, composed, strong in the tackle, quick across the ground. He had all the attributes needed to make it at the highest level, and Ferguson took notice. His performances in the FA Cup were commanding. He read the game well, intercepted danger before it developed, and played with a confidence beyond his years. Experienced defenders like Stam and Johnson guided him, but it was clear that Brown had the natural talent to hold his own. United's FA Cup run began with a convincing win over Middlesbrough. Despite rotating heavily, they dominated from the start. Solskjaer, ever the reliable finisher, grabbed a brace, while Sols controlled the midfield with his usual precision. The game was never in doubt. The League Cup followed a similar pattern. Ferguson used it as a chance to test his younger players, and they responded. The likes of Brown, Jonathan Greening, and Mark Wilson showed promise, giving the manager confidence that the squad's depth could withstand the grueling season ahead. But the focus was always on the league. After a shaky start, United had begun to build momentum. Key victories had restored belief. Every title-winning campaign had moments that defined the season, games where teams either proved their mettle or fell short. For United, these moments were beginning to arrive. A trip to Anfield was one such test. Liverpool were rebuilding, but they were still dangerous, still capable of causing problems. The rivalry alone ensured the game would be fought with intensity. United started strong, controlling possession, probing for openings. It was a tight battle, neither side willing to concede space. But then, in classic fashion, a moment of brilliance changed everything. Beckham, from deep, spotted a run from Cole and delivered a perfect pass over the top. Cole took one touch to control, another to shift the ball away from the defender, and a third to guide it past the keeper. 1-0. The away end erupted. Liverpool pushed back, launching attack after attack, but United held firm. Keane, as always, was everywhere, breaking up play, driving his team forward, setting the tempo. The midfield battle was fierce, but United refused to be overwhelmed. When the final whistle blew, the significance of the win was clear. It wasn't just 3 points, it was a statement. A few weeks later, another crucial fixture loomed. Arsenal at Old Trafford. The reigning champions had no intention of surrendering their crown easily. Wenger's side had quality, had fight, had belief, but United were ready. From the first whistle, the pace was relentless. The midfield battle was brutal, neither side giving an inch. Arsenal, through Bergkamp and Anelka, looked threatening, but United had firepower of their own. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A corner swung in, a scramble in the box, and suddenly the ball fell to Keane. A first-time strike, low and powerful, past Seaman. 1-0. Arsenal responded, Bergkamp twisting and turning in the box before finding the net. 1-1. The game was wide open, but United, as they so often did, found another gear. A quick passing move down the left saw Giggs break free, his cross inch perfect for York. A flicked header, the ball nestling into the far corner. 2-1. As the clock ran down, Arsenal threw everything forward, but United's defense stood strong. Brown once again showed maturity beyond his years, clearing danger, winning duels. When the whistle blew, Old Trafford erupted. Another massive win, another step toward the title. Momentum was everything. As winter turned to spring, United continued to gather it. Newcastle away was another test, another chance to prove their credentials. St. James Park was never an easy place to go, but United thrived under pressure. Souls opened the scoring with a strike from distance. York doubled the lead with a clinical finish, and by the time Cole added a third, the job was done. With every passing week, the belief grew stronger. This was a team built for success, experience blended with youthful energy, individual brilliance balanced by collective strength. Ferguson had seen it all before, but even he knew there was something special about this squad. The FA Cup journey continued. A trip to Chelsea in the later rounds presented another challenge. Stamford Bridge was hostile, the opposition determined. United had to dig deep. It was a game of few chances, but in the second half, Giggs produced a moment of magic. Picking up the ball near the halfway line, he weaved through defenders, gliding past challenges before slotting home. It was the kind of goal that only he could score, the kind of goal that defined seasons. Back in the league, the games kept coming. A trip to Tottenham saw United fall behind early, but as they had done time and again, they found a response. York equalized before half-time. Keane put them ahead with a thunderous strike, and Solskjaer sealed the win in the dying moments. With every victory, the sense of inevitability grew. This was a side that refused to back down, that thrived under pressure, that found answers when others would have faltered. The finish line was still in the distance, but United were charging toward it. There were still challenges ahead, big games to be won, trophies still up for grabs. But as Ferguson watched his team grow, watched players like Brown step up, watched his squad deliver in the biggest moments, he knew one thing for certain: they weren't done yet. The Champions League group stage had already provided unforgettable moments. The thrilling draw at Old Trafford against Barcelona, the crucial points picked up against Brindby, the hard-fought battles that tested the squad's resilience. But there was no time to dwell on what had already happened. The return fixtures were coming fast, and with qualifications still hanging in the balance, every match carried enormous weight. The trip to the new camp was next. United knew what to expect. Barcelona, despite their struggles domestically, were still one of Europe's finest sides. Their attacking firepower, their movement, their technical brilliance, on their day, they could dismantle anyone. The 3-3 draw in Manchester had been breathtaking, and if anything, the second meeting promised even more. The atmosphere inside the new camp was electric. The home crowd, desperate for a result, roared from the opening whistle. United, however, were unfazed. They had been in this position before. They had played in the most hostile environments, and they knew that their best chance of success wasn't to sit back, but to take the game to their opponents. From the outset, both teams attacked with relentless intent. United struck first. A flowing move saw Beckham swing in a pinpoint cross from the right, York rising highest to glance a header past the keeper. 1-0. The perfect start. Barcelona responded almost immediately. Rivaldo, always a threat, picked up the ball on the edge of the box, twisted away from his marker, and drilled a low shot into the corner. 1-1. The game was back level, and the intensity only increased. United pushed forward again. Cole and York were proving almost unstoppable, their understanding telepathic, A quick exchange of passes sliced through the Barcelona defense, and Cole finished with clinical precision, 2-1. But just as in the first meeting, Barcelona wouldn't go away. Luis Enrique found space in the box and slotted home an equalizer, 2-2. There was no time to breathe, no moment of calm. The game was a whirlwind of attacking football, both sides refusing to take a step back into the second half. And again it was United who seized the advantage. A moment of brilliance from York, twisting away from two defenders before firing past the keeper, 3-2. The away end erupted. The impossible was within reach. But just as they had done in Manchester, Barcelona found another equalizer. Rivaldo again, this time with a stunning overhead kick that left Schmeichel rooted, 3-3. A goal worthy of the stage, worthy of the occasion. Both sides pushed for a winner, but neither found it. When the final whistle blew, there was exhaustion, relief, frustration, so many emotions colliding at once. It was another breathtaking match, another 6-goal spectacle, but for United, there was still work to do. Next up, Brindby. The Danish side had already been brushed aside in Copenhagen, and now, with qualification on the line, United couldn't afford to slip. They didn't. From the opening moments, they dominated. Beckham, orchestrating from the right, created chance after chance. York opened the scoring, finishing a sweeping move that had started deep in United's half. Then Cole added another, a delicate chip over the on-rushing keeper, 2-0, inside 20 minutes. And the result never looked in doubt. The second half brought more of the same. Scholes got on the score sheet, his late runs into the box proving impossible to track. Giggs, returning from injury, showed his trademark acceleration, bursting past defenders before drilling a low shot into the far corner. 4-0. United weren't finished. Late on, Solskjaer, so often the super sub, made his mark, slotting home after a clever pass from Butt. 5-0, a statement victory. With Barcelona and Bayern locked in their own battle, United's fate was now in their hands. But the hardest test remained, a final group game against Bayern Munich. The German giants, efficient, disciplined, ruthless. The match would be played at Old Trafford, and tensions were already simmering. The first meeting in Munich had ended in a draw, but this was different. Both teams knew a win would ensure top spot in the group. Bayern, experienced in these moments, played with controlled aggression, frustrating United with their physicality. From the start, challenges flew in. Keane, always ready for a battle, responded in kind. Every loose ball was fought for, every decision contested. United thought they had the breakthrough when Giggs was brought down on the edge of the area. Beckham stepped up, curled a stunning free kick over the wall, but Kahn, always defiant, somehow got a hand to it. Bayern struck first, a counter-attack down the right, a driven cross, and Basler arrived to finish. 1-0 to the visitors. Old Trafford fell silent for a moment, but the response was immediate. Keane drove forward, slipping a pass into the path of Cole. A quick turn, a sharp finish. 1-1. The game turned scrappy. Bayern's physicality slowed the tempo, breaking up United's rhythm. Frustration built. Scholes went into the book for a late tackle. Keane exchanged words with Effenberg. The tension was undeniable. Late on, United thought they had won it. Beckham swung in a cross. Stam rose highest, his header looping toward goal, only for Kahn to somehow claw it away. At the final whistle, there were arguments, confrontations. Players clashed in the tunnel, words exchanged in multiple languages. The battle had been fierce, and neither side was willing to back down. United had done enough to qualify. They were through to the knockout rounds, but the message was clear. If they were to go all the way, if they were to achieve something truly historic, they would have to go through the toughest, the strongest, the very best that Europe had to offer. The challenge was only beginning. The Premier League race was heating up with every passing week. The intensity grew, the margins tightened, and the pressure mounted. Manchester United knew they were in a battle. Arsenal and Chelsea were breathing down their necks, ready to pounce on any slip-up. Every game mattered. Every point was crucial. Arsenal, the defending champions, had no intention of relinquishing their crown. Under Arsene Wenger, they had developed a ruthless efficiency. Their defense, marshaled by Tony Adams, was rock solid. Their midfield, powered by Vieira and Petit, controlled games. And up front, Dennis Bergkamp and Nicolas Anelka provided the cutting edge. They were a machine, disciplined, relentless, and driven by the desire to stay at the top. Chelsea, meanwhile, were emerging as a serious contender. Gianluca Vialli had built a team full of experience and flair. Zola, Poyet, Dezeli, Petrescu, players who had been tested on the biggest stages. They played with confidence, they played with swagger, and they had the quality to go toe-to-toe with anyone. For United, every match felt like a final, and when the pressure was highest, when the stakes were at their peak, they found ways to deliver. There was the trip to Aston Villa, a nightmare start, saw them fall behind early, the home crowd sensing an upset. United pushed forward, but nothing seemed to come off. Then, out of nowhere, a moment of brilliance. Beckham, picking the ball up from deep, spotted Scholes making a late run. A perfect pass, a first-time finish, 1-1. The belief surged. Minutes later, York against his former club struck a second, and in stoppage time, Giggs sealed it, 3-1. A comeback that sent a message. There was the clash with Liverpool at Old Trafford, a fiery encounter, filled with history, filled with tension. Michael Owen struck early, silencing the crowd. Liverpool sat deep, defended with everything they had. Time ticked away. United kept pushing. Then, with minutes to go, a lifeline. A corner swung in, a scramble in the box, and Cole reacted first. 1-1. Not the win they wanted, but a point that kept them moving forward. And then, there was Arsenal, the defining battle. Highbury, under the floodlights, the reigning champions against the challengers. It was fierce, it was physical, it was everything the Premier League was about. Arsenal struck first. Anelka, exploiting a rare gap in United's defense, lashed a shot past Schmeichel. 1-0. The home fans erupted. The momentum was with them, but Ferguson's side never panicked. They never lost belief. They had been here before. They had suffered setbacks before, and they knew that all it took was one moment to turn the tide. It came in the second half. Keane, refusing to be bullied in midfield, won back possession and immediately surged forward. A quick pass to York, a clever flick to Cole, and then the finish. Low, precise, unstoppable. 1-1. The celebrations were wild. Arsenal responded with fury, throwing everything forward. Bergkamp tested Schmeichel. Vieira drove through midfield, but United held firm, and in the dying minutes, they found the winner. A corner from Beckham, a towering header from Stam, a scramble on the goal line, and Keane, arriving from nowhere, smashed it in. 2-1. A seismic victory. Ferguson was relentless. He knew how important every moment was. His team talks weren't just instructions, they were psychological warfare. He knew how to push his players, how to ignite the fire within them. Before crucial matches, he would remind them of past failures, past criticisms, past doubts. He would tell them what was being said about them, the articles that questioned their mentality, the pundits who doubted their ability, and then he would make them prove everyone wrong. Before the Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge, he reminded them of the previous season's disappointment, the draw that had cost them valuable points, the missed chances, the feeling of frustration. Not this time, he told them. Not again. They responded. The game was tight, tense, and on a knife edge. Chelsea, well drilled, were difficult to break down, but United had patience. They waited for their moment, and when it came, they took it. Beckham, given half a yard of space, whipped in a cross. York, making a perfectly timed run, met it with a bullet header. 1-0, the away end erupted. Chelsea pushed for an equalizer, but United stood strong, a statement win. The season continued with more challenges, more battles, more defining moments. Newcastle away, a game where United found themselves trailing twice, only to roar back each time. York and Solskjaer, ensuring another vital win. Tottenham at home, where a stubborn Spurs side frustrated them for over an hour, only for Giggs to unlock the defense with a stunning solo goal. Blackburn at Airwood Park, another comeback, another late show, another demonstration of their refusal to give in. Ferguson's team had something special. It wasn't just talent, it wasn't just experience, it was belief, a refusal to accept defeat, a hunger to fight until the very last second. They weren't just chasing the title, they were chasing something greater, and with each passing week, with each comeback, with each victory, they were getting closer. The FA Cup had always meant something special to Manchester United. It wasn't just another competition, it was history, tradition, and a stage for moments that would live forever. Ferguson knew that, his players knew that, the fans knew that, and in a season where every competition mattered, they weren't about to let the FA Cup slip away. Their journey began in the third round. The draw had been kind, giving them a home fixture against Middlesbrough. On paper, it should have been routine, but cup football had its own rules, and Middlesbrough, determined to prove themselves, arrived at Old Trafford ready for a fight. The first half was a frustrating one. United dominated possession, but couldn't break through. Every time they got close, Middlesbrough's defense stood firm. The crowd grew restless, but Ferguson's side had patience. They had learned not to panic. They had seen games like this before, and just before the hour mark, they got their breakthrough. It started with Giggs, weaving his way down the left, skipping past challengers, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, a low cross fizzed into the box. Yorker met it first, but his shot was blocked. The ball bounced loose. Shaw's, arriving late as always, adjusted his feet and rifled it home. 1-0. The relief was instant. Middlesbrough pushed for an equalizer, but United were too strong. In the closing minutes, a second goal sealed it. Beckham, from a free kick, delivered one of those trademark crosses, curling perfectly onto the head of Solskjaer. 2-0. Job done. The fourth round brought Liverpool, a tie that needed no extra drama, no extra build-up. It was United versus Liverpool in the FA Cup, a fixture with weight, with history, with everything on the line. And it started in the worst possible way. Inside 2 minutes, Liverpool had the lead. Michael Owen, the most dangerous striker in the country, at that moment, ghosted between Stam and Johnson, and glanced a header past Schmeichel. Old Trafford fell silent. Liverpool were organised, compact, and confident. United had all the possession, all the ball, but they couldn't find a way through. Every pass, every cross, was cut out. Time was slipping away. Ferguson prowled the touchline, urging his players forward. The minutes ticked by. Then came the breakthrough. With 2 minutes left, a deep free kick was launched into the box. Liverpool failed to clear. The ball bounced around. Yorker got the slightest touch, just enough to send it towards Cole, and Cole, with the instinct of a born finisher, nodded it past James. 1-1. Old Trafford erupted. But United weren't done. They didn't play for extra time. They played to win. Straight from the restart, they pressed. Giggs picked up the ball on the left, surged forward, skipped past one, past two, laid it inside to Scholzer. A quick touch, A pass to Solskjaer, a turn, a shot, the net rippled, 2-1. In stoppage time. Classic United. The fifth round was different. Fulham, a team on the rise, full of confidence, playing with nothing to lose. It was a tricky fixture, but United had learned how to navigate these challenges. They controlled the game from the start, moving the ball with purpose, testing Fulham's defense until they cracked. The first goal came from a familiar source, Beckham, from distance, a trademark curling strike that left the keeper rooted. Fulham tried to respond, but United were ruthless. Yorker doubled the lead before half-time, finishing off a perfectly timed pass from Solskjaer, and in the second half, Keane, always determined to stamp his authority, powered home a third, 3-0. No drama, no mistakes, just a professional performance. Then came the quarter-final. Chelsea, a team they were battling in the league, a team with ambitions of their own, a team that on their day could match United in every department. Stamford Bridge was the setting. The pressure was immense. The feeling was different. This wasn't just about the FA Cup anymore. It was about momentum, about sending a message, about proving who was stronger. Chelsea started aggressively, their midfield pressing high, making life difficult for United. Deschamps and Wise harassed Keane and Solskjaer, forcing mistakes, disrupting the rhythm. Up front, Sola and Flo linked up well, creating half chances. United had to weather the storm, and they did. The defense, marshaled by Stam, stood firm. Schmeichel, as vocal as ever, commanded his area. Gradually, United grew into the game. They started finding their passes, they started controlling possession, they started creating chances. Then, the moment came. A slick passing move through midfield, Keane to Giggs, Giggs to York, Yorker to Cole. One touch, a swivel, a shot, 1-0. The away end exploded. Chelsea responded with everything they had. They attacked in waves. They forced United back. Sola tested Schmeichel with a vicious strike. Flo went close with a header, but United had resilience. They held on. They fought. They defended with everything. The final whistle blew. 1-0. A massive victory. A place in the semi-final. Another step closer to silverware. The treble dream was still alive. Manchester United and Arsenal, two teams that despised each other, two managers who respected but rarely agreed with each other, and two sets of players who knew that every meeting between them could decide a season. The rivalry had been brewing for years, but in this campaign, it had reached its boiling point, with both sides battling for the Premier League title, and now set to face off in the FA Cup. The stakes had never been higher. The match had everything: drama, controversy, and a level of intensity rarely seen in English football. Arsenal, under Arsene Wenger, had become the biggest threat to Ferguson's United. They were organized, ruthless, and filled with quality. Patrick Vieira and Emmanuel Petit controlled the midfield with power and precision, while Dennis Bergkamp's creativity made him one of the most dangerous forwards in the league. United, on the other hand, had their own stars. Keane, Beckham, Giggs, and Scholes were all at their peak, and Ferguson, a master of mind games, had ensured his players understood exactly what this match meant. From the first whistle, the game was relentless. Tackles flew in, tempers flared, and neither side was willing to back down. Arsenal struck first, a moment of brilliance from Bergkamp, giving them the lead. Old Trafford was stunned, but United, as they had done so many times, found a response. Beckham, picking up the ball on the edge of the box, curled a stunning effort into the top corner. 1-1. The noise inside the stadium was deafening. The second half was a war of attrition. United pressed forward, but Arsenal's defense stood strong. Every attack was met with a tackle. Every pass was contested. Then controversy. Roy Keane, already on a booking, went in for a challenge on Vieira. The referee reached for his pocket. A second yellow. United were down to 10 men. Ferguson was furious, but he knew his side had to regroup. Arsenal sensed an opportunity and pushed forward. With minutes left, they won a penalty. Up stepped Bergkamp. He had the chance to win it. But Peter Schmeichel, in what would be one of his greatest moments in a United shirt, guessed correctly and saved it. Old Trafford erupted. Extra time. Legs were tired, minds were exhausted, but still the battle raged on. And then came the moment that would define the match. Ryan Giggs, picking up the ball deep in his own half, began to run. Past one, past two, past three. Arsenal defenders lunged, but he skipped past them all, into the box. A left-footed strike, and the ball ripped into the net. United had done it. Giggs tore off his shirt, sprinting in celebration. The stadium shook. It was a goal for the ages, a goal that would be replayed for decades. The final whistle blew. United had won. They had knocked Arsenal out. The treble dream was still alive, and more importantly, they had delivered a psychological blow to their greatest rivals. The celebrations were wild, but Ferguson knew the job wasn't done. The league was still in the balance, and the Champions League loomed. But for now, they could savor this victory. One of the greatest nights in FA Cup history, one of the most intense clashes ever witnessed. United had prevailed, and their journey continued. This game wasn't just about one moment, though. It was about the intensity of every second, the grit of the players, and the tactical chess match between two legendary managers. The first half was played at a blistering pace, both teams trying to assert dominance. Arsenal's counter-attacks were deadly, and United had to stay disciplined. Jaap Stam and Ronnie Johnson were tested repeatedly by Bergkamp's movement and the direct running of Anelka. Meanwhile, Keane and Scholes were embroiled in an all-out war in midfield, battling Vieira and Petit for every loose ball, every foul, every missed opportunity, every inch of space fought over. These were the moments that defined this encounter. Ferguson knew that this wasn't just about advancing in the cup, it was about mental supremacy in a title race that had no room for error. Wenger's Arsenal, reigning champions, had to be broken, and this was the night that could do it. The tension only grew as the game progressed. Schmeichel's penalty save wasn't just a heroic stop, it was a shift in momentum. It deflated Arsenal and reignited United. In extra time, even with a man down, Ferguson refused to settle. He had Giggs, he had Beckham, he had players who could change a game in an instant. When Giggs picked up that ball and decided to run, it was instinct, it was brilliance, it was history in the making. The psychological impact of this victory was immense. Arsenal, shaken by the defeat, lost ground in the league race. United, fueled by the triumph, gained momentum that would carry them through the rest of the campaign. This was the night the treble became a real possibility. The fans knew it, the players knew it, and Ferguson knew it. They weren't just aiming for trophies anymore. They were chasing immortality. As the players left the pitch, Ferguson gathered them in the dressing room. The celebrations could wait. He looked at them, a squad on the brink of greatness, and simply said, "This is just the beginning." Manchester United entered the Champions League quarter-finals, knowing they were up against one of the toughest opponents in Europe. Inter Milan, a team built on defensive resilience and attacking firepower, were determined to stop Ferguson's men in their tracks. This was a defining moment. United had long sought European success, but this was the test that would prove whether they belonged among the elite. The atmosphere at Old Trafford was electric. The fans understood the magnitude of this fixture, and so did the players. Ferguson, never one to shy away from a challenge, had drilled his team meticulously. Every tactical nuance had been analyzed, every strength and weakness of Inter Milan scrutinized. He knew that the battle would be won, not just on talent, but on determination, discipline, and leadership. And in that regard, there was one man who stood above the rest: Roy Keane. Keane was the heart and soul of United. His influence extended beyond the pitch. He demanded excellence, commitment, and an unrelenting will to win. As the game kicked off, he set the tone. Within the opening minutes, he had already won 2 crucial duels, one against Diego Simeone and another against Yuri Djorkaeff. These weren't just tackles, they were statements. United were not going to be bullied, they were here to dominate. United started with intent. David Beckham, in sublime form, delivered pinpoint crosses into the box. Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole, forming one of the deadliest strike partnerships in Europe, pressed high, forcing mistakes from Inter's backline. And then the breakthrough. Beckham, picking up the ball on the right wing, delivered an inch-perfect cross. Yorke rose above the defenders and powered a header past Gianluca Pagliuca. Old Trafford erupted. United had the lead. Inter Milan, however, were no strangers to adversity. They responded with waves of attacks, testing United's defensive resilience. Jaap Stam and Ronnie Johnson had their hands full dealing with the movement of Ronaldo, arguably the most feared striker in the world at the time. Every time he got the ball, danger loomed, but Schmeichel, a colossus in goal, was equal to the challenge. He pulled off save after save, keeping United's advantage intact. As the first half progressed, United pushed for a second. Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs orchestrated attacks with precision, slicing through Inter's midfield. Ferguson, prowling the touchline, urged his players forward, and just before half-time, they found their moment. A slick passing move, starting from Keane, found Cole in space. Instead of going for goal himself, he unselfishly laid it off to Yorke, who calmly slotted the ball into the net. 2-0, the perfect first half. The second half was a different battle. Inter came out determined to claw their way back into the tie. They tightened up defensively and looked to exploit any gaps in United's midfield. Simeone and Zanetti dictated the tempo, launching swift counter-attacks. Eventually, their persistence paid off. A defensive lapse allowed Roberto Baggio to sneak in and pull a goal back. The momentum shifted. The Italian giants sensed an opportunity. This was where United needed leaders. Keane, as always, rose to the occasion. He barked orders, urged his teammates to stay compact, and put in crucial tackles to break up play. It was a performance of sheer grit, the kind that inspired those around him. Even when Inter pressed forward relentlessly, United held firm. Ferguson adjusted, bringing on Nicky Butt to shore up the midfield. It worked. United saw out the game, taking a 2-0 lead into the second leg. The return fixture at the San Siro was a cauldron of intensity. Inter Milan, desperate to overturn the deficit, attacked relentlessly from the first whistle. Ronaldo and Baggio combined dangerously, forcing United onto the back foot. The pressure was immense, but once again, Schmeichel delivered. Save after save, he frustrated Inter's forwards, keeping United alive. Then a moment of pure quality. Inter won a corner, and as the ball was delivered into the box, it found its way to Baggio, who reacted quickest to stab it home. 1-0. The tie was back in the balance. The San Siro roared. United had to dig deep. Ferguson, sensing the need for fresh energy, made a bold move. He pushed his team forward rather than sitting back, and it paid off. A counter-attack, led by Giggs, saw the Welshman race down the wing before delivering a cross into the area. Yorke met it with a towering header, leveling the score on the night and restoring United's cushion. Inter fought until the very end, but United had proven their resilience. The final whistle blew. They had done it. United were through to the semi-finals. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. They had gone toe-to-toe with one of Europe's finest, and emerged victorious. This was a team built for the grandest stage. In the dressing room, Keane's words summed it up best. "We belong here," he told his teammates, and with each passing round, the belief only grew stronger. The treble dream was alive, and now all of Europe had taken notice. Manchester United's FA Cup semi-final replay against Arsenal was more than just a football match. It was a battle between two titans, two teams that had pushed each other to the limit all season long. This was the game that had everything: controversy, intensity, moments of brilliance, and a goal that would go down in history. For United, it wasn't just about advancing to the final, it was about momentum, belief, and keeping the treble dream alive. From the very first whistle, it was clear this wasn't just another game, it was war. Every pass, every tackle, every movement on the pitch was played with a ferocity rarely seen. Arsenal, reigning league champions, had no intention of letting United dominate them. Patrick Vieira and Emmanuel Petit were aggressive in midfield, trying to dictate the tempo. On the other side, Roy Keane and Paul Scholes matched them stride for stride, refusing to let Arsenal control the game. The tone was set. This was going to be an all-out battle. United thought they had struck first. A Beckham cross met the head of Dwight York, and the net rippled. The celebrations began until the linesman raised his flag. Offside. Old Trafford groaned. It was a warning shot, a glimpse of what was to come. Arsenal responded. Nicolas Anelka, with his electric pace, caused all sorts of problems for the United backline. He managed to slip through and put the ball in the back of the net. Arsenal fans erupted, only for the referee to call it back for offside. Tension mounted. 2 disallowed goals, both sides living on the edge. Then came a moment that could have defined the match. Dennis Bergkamp, Arsenal's maestro, found space on the edge of the box and unleashed a fierce strike. The ball took a wicked deflection off Jaap Stam, completely wrong-footing Peter Schmeichel. Arsenal were ahead. The balance of the game had shifted. United needed a response, and fast. They found it through David Beckham. Picking up the ball just outside the box, he curled a stunning effort past David Seaman. The net bulged. 1-1. Old Trafford erupted. This wasn't just an equalizer, it was a statement. United were not going away. The second half was a war of attrition. Tackles flew in from every angle. Keane and Vieira went head-to-head, neither giving an inch. It was physical, aggressive, everything you'd expect from two of the best teams in England. Then, controversy. Keane, already on a yellow, went in for a late challenge. The referee had no hesitation. A second yellow, a red card. United were down to 10 men. Arsenal sensed an opportunity. They pressed forward, determined to make their numerical advantage count. The defining moment of the game came in the dying minutes. Arsenal won a penalty. Bergkamp stepped up, with the chance to send Arsenal through. He struck it low and hard, but Schmeichel, United's legendary shot stopper, guessed right. He threw himself to his left and parried it away. The crowd exploded. United was still alive. Extra time began, and fatigue set in. Both teams had given everything, but neither wanted to settle for penalties. Then, it happened, a moment of pure magic. A goal that would be replayed for decades. Ryan Giggs, deep in his own half, intercepted a loose pass from Vieira. He took off, gliding past one Arsenal defender, then another. The crowd rose, past a third, then a fourth. He was in the box. A left-footed strike, past Seaman, into the roof of the net. Pandemonium. Giggs tore off his shirt, sprinting in celebration, twirling it above his head. The image of his bare-chested run became iconic, a symbol of United's never-say-die spirit. The goal wasn't just a piece of individual brilliance, it was the moment that defined the match, the tournament, and possibly the entire season. Arsenal had no response. The final whistle blew. United had done it. Against all odds, with 10 men, they had beaten their fiercest rivals. This wasn't just a win, it was a psychological blow. It was a message to the rest of England, to the rest of Europe. This team was unstoppable. In the dressing room, the celebrations were wild. Ferguson, though, had one simple message: this is why you never give in. It wasn't over yet. There was still a Premier League to win. There was still a Champions League to fight for. But on this night, they had taken a step closer to immortality. For years to come, fans and pundits would call this one of the greatest FA Cup games ever played. The intensity, the drama, the saves, the disallowed goals, the penalty, and of course, that goal from Giggs. It had everything. It was a match that showcased what football is all about: the passion, the tension, the moments that live forever. And for Manchester United, it was a night that proved they were destined for greatness. Manchester United entered the final stretch of the Premier League season, knowing that every match was crucial. The pressure was immense, with Arsenal breathing down their necks, and Chelsea still in the race. There was no room for error. Ferguson knew that his team had to be relentless, that every point mattered. The squad was battle-hardened, but this was the defining moment. Could they hold their nerve and take the first step toward history? The build-up to the final matches of the league was filled with tension. United had to navigate a series of tricky fixtures, including clashes against Leeds, Blackburn, and their closest rivals. It was during these games that their resilience truly shone. The match against Leeds was a war of attrition. United went behind early, but as they had done so many times that season, they fought back. Beckham's pinpoint cross found the head of Andy Cole, who nodded the ball into the net. Then, with time running out, Paul Scholes produced a moment of magic. A half volley from outside the box rifled into the top corner. United took the win. It was a performance that embodied their never-say-die attitude. Next up was a trip to Ewood Park to face Blackburn Rovers. It was another battle, a game where United had to dig deep. The midfield battle was intense, with Keane and Scholes going head-to-head with Blackburn's tough tacklers. Schmeichel was called into action multiple times, making crucial saves to keep the game level. Then, in the dying minutes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer found space inside the box. One touch to control, one touch to finish. United snatched a vital 1-0 win. As the season neared its climax, United faced Tottenham Hotspur on the final day of the campaign. They needed a victory to secure the title. Anything less would open the door for Arsenal. Old Trafford was a cauldron of anticipation. The fans knew what was at stake, and the players could feel the weight of expectation. The game started in the worst possible way. Tottenham, with nothing to lose, played freely and took an early lead. Les Ferdinand capitalized on a defensive mix-up and sent a looping shot over Schmeichel. A stunned silence fell over Old Trafford. For the first time, doubt began to creep in, but United had faced adversity all season, and they responded in kind. The equalizer came before half-time. Beckham, once again stepping up in the biggest moments, received the ball on the right wing, took a touch, and curled a stunning shot into the far corner. The roar of the crowd was deafening. United were level. The momentum had shifted. After the break, Ferguson's men came out with renewed purpose. They pushed forward relentlessly, driven by the knowledge that the title was within reach. Then, early in the second half, it happened. Andy Cole, always a predator inside the box, latched onto a through ball from Gary Neville. With a deft touch, he lifted the ball over the onrushing goalkeeper. The ball dropped into the net, and Old Trafford exploded with joy. Cole sprinted away in celebration, knowing he had just scored one of the most important goals of his career. The final whistle was met with an eruption of cheers. Manchester United were champions of England. The first piece of the treble was secured. Ferguson's men had held their nerve, had fought through every challenge, and had emerged as the best team in the country. The players embraced, the fans celebrated, and the dream of an unprecedented treble was now closer than ever. In the dressing room, the champagne flowed. Ferguson, normally composed even in victory, allowed himself a smile of satisfaction. but he also knew there was more work to be done. The celebrations would be short-lived. The FA Cup final awaited, followed by the biggest match of them all, the Champions League final in Barcelona. The journey was far from over, but for now, they could savor this moment. Manchester United were Premier League champions, and they had done it in the most dramatic fashion possible. As the night wore on, one thing was clear: this was not the end, but just the beginning. The treble was within reach. The next challenges would define their place in football history, and United, with their never-ending hunger for success, were ready for whatever lay ahead. Manchester United's journey through the Champions League had been nothing short of extraordinary. Every step, every match, had been a test of their resilience, skill, and determination, and now they found themselves in the semi-finals, just one step away from the grandest stage of them all. Their opponents, Juventus, a team that had dominated Italian and European football, a side that was methodical, disciplined, and ruthless. This was the test of all tests, and United knew they had to rise to the occasion. The first leg at Old Trafford was tense. Juventus, under the leadership of Marcello Lippi, arrived with a clear game plan: defend resolutely, control possession, and strike on the counter. United, however, knew that they couldn't afford to be cautious. The atmosphere was electric as the players took their positions. From the opening whistle, the game was a battle of tactical discipline and sheer willpower. Juventus struck first. A defensive lapse allowed Antonio Conte to slip into the box, unmarked, and with a precise header, he gave the visitors the lead. Old Trafford fell silent for a moment, but soon the crowd roared back into life, urging their team forward. Ferguson's men responded as they always had, by fighting back. Beckham and Giggs pushed relentlessly on the wings, trying to break down Juventus's rigid defensive structure. In midfield, Keane battled ferociously against Edgar Davids and Didier Deschamps, refusing to be overrun. As the game wore on, United continued to press. Their breakthrough came late in the second half. Dwight Yorke received a pass on the edge of the box, turned sharply, and unleashed a powerful shot. Peruzzi, Juventus's experienced goalkeeper, managed to get a hand to it, but the rebound fell kindly to Ryan Giggs. With ice-cold composure, Giggs slotted the ball home. Old Trafford erupted. United had salvaged a crucial 1-1 draw, keeping their hopes alive for the second leg in Turin. The return leg in Italy was a night that would go down in history, a match that embodied everything that made Manchester United special. The Stadio delle Alpi was an intimidating fortress, and Juventus were confident they had an away goal, home advantage, and a squad filled with world-class talent. United, however, had something even more powerful: belief. The match began in the worst possible fashion for Ferguson's men. Juventus came out of the blocks with blistering intensity. Within the first 10 minutes, Filippo Inzaghi struck twice, pouncing on defensive errors to put the Italian giants 2-0 up. At that moment, it seemed like United's European dream was slipping away. But great teams are defined by how they respond to adversity, and this United side refused to crumble. Roy Keane, the captain, the warrior, the leader, decided that this would not be the end of their journey. He took control, demanding more from every player. In the 24th minute, United won a corner. Beckham delivered an inch-perfect cross, and Keane, rising above everyone, powered a header into the net. He didn't celebrate. There was no time for that. Instead, he turned, sprinting back to his position, urging his team forward. The comeback had begun. Juventus, momentarily shaken, tried to regain control, but United had found their rhythm. They attacked relentlessly, pushing the Italians deeper and deeper. Then, in the 34th minute, Yorke struck. A brilliant passing move between Cole and Yorke saw the latter break free inside the box. With a deft touch, he slotted the ball past Peruzzi. 2-2. United were now ahead on aggregate, and the dream was alive once more. The second half was a battle of nerves. Juventus, desperate to turn the tide, threw everything forward. Zidane, with his elegance and vision, tried to unlock United's defense, but Keane, despite being on a yellow card that meant he would miss the final, put in the performance of a lifetime. He intercepted, tackled, and drove his team forward with an unmatched intensity. With just minutes left, United sealed the game. York, once again causing havoc, broke through Juventus's defense, but as he was taken down, the ball fell to Andy Cole. The striker kept his composure and slotted it home. 3-2. United had done it. They had conquered Turin. They had overcome one of the greatest teams in Europe on their own turf. The final whistle blew, and United's players collapsed to the ground, exhausted but victorious. Ferguson embraced his coaching staff, knowing they had just witnessed one of the greatest performances in the club's history. Keane, despite knowing he wouldn't play in the final, had led by example, delivering a captain's performance that would be remembered forever. United were through to the Champions League final. The treble dream was very much alive, and now, only one team stood in their way: Bayern Munich. The stage was set for the greatest night in Manchester United's history. Manchester United arrived at Wembley with the weight of expectation on their shoulders. The Premier League title was secured, but the job was far from finished. Now, they had a chance to add the FA Cup to their growing list of achievements. Standing in their way was Newcastle United, a team desperate to salvage their season with a trophy. The stakes were high, and the atmosphere at Wembley reflected that. The sea of red and black and white stripes filled the stands, and the tension was palpable. From the opening whistle, United asserted their dominance. They moved the ball with confidence, dictating the tempo of the game. Keane and Scholes controlled the midfield, ensuring Newcastle struggled to gain a foothold. De Beckham and Giggs stretched the play, providing width and dangerous deliveries into the box. United looked sharp, focused, and determined to get the job done. The breakthrough came early. Just 10 minutes in, United worked the ball through the middle, and Sheringham, starting in place of the suspended Roy Keane, received it on the edge of the box. With his trademark composure, he shifted the ball onto his right foot and curled a precise shot past the outstretched arms of Newcastle's goalkeeper. The ball nestled into the bottom corner, and the United end erupted in celebration. Sheringham had delivered on the big stage once again. Newcastle tried to respond, pushing forward in search of an equalizer. Alan Shearer, their talismanic striker, led the charge, but he was met with a resolute United defense. Stam and Johnson were unyielding, cutting out crosses and blocking shots. Schmeichel, in what would be his final FA Cup appearance for United, was alert and commanding, ensuring Newcastle had no way through. United continued to threaten on the counter. York and Cole's partnership was in full flow, their movement causing chaos in Newcastle's backline. Beckham, with his pinpoint passing, continued to create openings. Then, just before half-time, United struck again. This time, it was Scholes who found the net. A sweeping move saw Giggs burst down the left flank before squaring the ball into the box. Sheringham dummied brilliantly, allowing the ball to run through to Scholes, who calmly slotted it home. United were 2-0 up, and Wembley knew the FA Cup was slipping away from Newcastle's grasp. The second half saw United manage the game with remarkable professionalism. They kept possession, frustrating their opponents, and ensuring that Newcastle had little opportunity to mount a comeback. Shearer had one moment of danger, finding space to unleash a powerful shot, but Schmeichel was equal to it, diving low to make the save. As the clock ticked down, Ferguson's men continued to show their class. The defensive structure was solid, and their passing was crisp. The introduction of substitutes late on allowed them to see out the game with minimal fuss. The final whistle blew, and United had done it. The FA Cup was theirs. The double was complete. The celebrations on the pitch were jubilant, players embraced, the coaching staff beamed with pride, and the United supporters roared in delight. The team had conquered England once again. As the players made their way up the famous Wembley steps, the anticipation built. When club captain Peter Schmeichel lifted the trophy aloft, it signified another moment of triumph in United's incredible season. The dressing room was filled with euphoria. Ferguson, ever the perfectionist, allowed himself a moment to revel in the victory, but he knew there was still one more mountain to climb. The treble was within reach. The FA Cup final was a success, but the biggest game of them all awaited: the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. The players knew the significance of what they had achieved, but they also knew the job was not done. The Premier League and FA Cup were secured, but history demanded more. As they celebrated deep into the night, their minds were already shifting to Barcelona. The dream of the treble was alive. One more match, one more battle, one more chance to etch their names into football immortality. Manchester United had achieved something special, but there was no time to rest. The celebrations of their FA Cup triumph were short-lived. The biggest match of their careers loomed just days away: the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. Wembley was behind them. Now their sights were set on the grandest stage in European football, Barcelona's Camp Nou. The preparations began immediately. Sir Alex Ferguson gathered his squad and coaching staff at Carrington, reinforcing the magnitude of the task ahead. The Champions League was the ultimate prize, the one United had chased for decades. The players knew they stood on the verge of history, but Ferguson made it clear that nothing was guaranteed. Bayern Munich was a formidable opponent, a team with experience, tactical discipline, and a hunger for success. The days leading up to the final were intense. Training sessions were sharp, tactical meetings were detailed, and every player understood their role. Ferguson, along with his trusted assistant Steve McLaren, meticulously analyzed Bayern's strengths and weaknesses. The Germans had a well-drilled midfield, a rock-solid defense, and the ever-dangerous Mario Basler and Stefan Effenberg pulling the strings. United's approach had to be perfect. To one lapse in concentration, one mistake, and the dream could slip away. The absence of Roy Keane and Paul Scholes due to suspension was a massive blow. Keane had been United's driving force, his leadership and tenacity pushing them past Juventus in the semi-final. Scholes, with his technical brilliance and goal-scoring ability, was a key creative spark. Now, Ferguson had to find a way to replace them. He turned to Nicky Butt and Jesper Blomqvist, trusting them to step up in the biggest game of their lives. As the team departed for Barcelona, the anticipation reached fever pitch. Fans flooded the streets, chanting, waving flags, and showing their unwavering support. The flight to Spain was filled with a quiet determination. This was not just another game, it was a chance to cement their legacy. Upon arrival in Barcelona, United trained at a high tempo, familiarizing themselves with the pitch at the Camp Nou. The final tactical briefing took place the night before the game. Ferguson's message was clear: play without fear, trust in each other, and seize the moment. He reminded them of the journey that had brought them here, the comebacks, the drama, the resilience. Now, it all came down to 90 minutes. The morning of the final, the nerves were unavoidable. The players woke up to headlines proclaiming the magnitude of the match. Around the city, United and Bayern fans mingled, creating an electric atmosphere. The streets were painted in red and white, a sea of supporters hoping to witness history. The team bus ride to the stadium was silent, each player lost in thought. The dressing room was a mix of nervous energy and steely focus. Ferguson delivered his final words, his voice calm yet powerful. He knew his players were ready. As they stepped onto the pitch for the warm-up, the noise from the stands was deafening. The Champions League anthem played, and the reality sank in. This was their moment. Kickoff was moments away. The final test awaited. Would Manchester United complete the treble and etch their name into football immortality? The world was watching, and destiny awaited. Every detail in the days leading up to the final was scrutinized. Ferguson had planned training meticulously, ensuring players were at peak fitness. The intensity of the sessions was deliberately high, designed to simulate the pace and pressure of the final. The absence of keen shows was a major concern, but the team had trained extensively with potential replacements, ensuring that the system remained intact. Ferguson also focused on mental preparation. He spoke individually with key players, reinforcing their strengths and reminding them of their contributions throughout the season. He understood that confidence was just as crucial as tactics. He reminded the squad of their performances against Inter Milan and Juventus, proving they belonged among Europe's elite. The tactical meetings were in-depth. Ferguson and McLaren had studied Bayern Munich's patterns of play. They identified key threats: Effenberg's control in midfield, Basler's set-piece ability, and the aerial threat posed by Carsten Janker. They worked on countermeasures, ensuring players knew when to press, when to drop deep, and how to exploit Bayern's defensive weaknesses. Ryan Giggs and David Beckham were encouraged to stretch the play wide, using their pace and crossing ability to create chances. The psychological aspect was just as crucial. Ferguson had experienced European heartbreak before, and he did not want his players to succumb to the occasion. He emphasized the importance of staying composed, of believing until the very last moment. He used past comebacks as motivation, reminding the players that Manchester United never gave up. The day before the match, the squad had a final training session at Camp Nou. It was a light session, focusing on set pieces and positional drills. The players soaked in the atmosphere, visualizing the game ahead. Some took a moment to walk around the pitch, imagining what it would feel like to lift the trophy. That night, Ferguson called a final team meeting. He kept it brief but powerful. He reminded the players of their journey, of the sacrifices they had made. He told them this was their moment to make history. The room was silent, each player absorbing the weight of his words. The belief was there. They were ready. The morning of the match was a blur of routine and nerves. The players followed their usual pre-match rituals, some listening to music, others sitting in quiet contemplation. The team bus ride to the stadium was tense, the players staring out at the sea of fans gathered outside Camp Nou. The noise was deafening as they entered the stadium, a mix of United red and Bayern white filling the stands. In the dressing room, the final preparations were made. Ferguson's last words were simple: go out there and play the way you know how. Fight for each other, believe in each other. This is your night, make it count. As the players walked down the tunnel, the roar of the crowd intensified. They stepped onto the pitch, the Champions League anthem playing around them. This was it. 90 minutes separated them from history. The battle was about to begin. The Champions League final was the pinnacle of Manchester United's historic season, the ultimate test against a formidable Bayern Munich side. The atmosphere inside the Camp Nou was electric, a stadium divided between red and white, with fans creating a wall of noise that echoed through the night. Sir Alex Ferguson had prepared his team meticulously for this moment, but no amount of preparation could fully eliminate the nerves that came with such an occasion. The match kicked off, and immediately Bayern Munich set the tone. Within 6 minutes, disaster struck for United. A free kick was awarded to Bayern on the edge of the box. Mario Basler, known for his dead ball prowess, stepped up with confidence. His strike was low and precise, curling around the United wall and sneaking past Peter Schmeichel into the bottom corner. Bayern had the lead, and United were on the back foot before they had even settled into the game. United tried to regain their composure, but Bayern's discipline in midfield and defense made it difficult to find any rhythm. Without Roy Keane's commanding presence, Nicky Butt and David Beckham had to take control in the center of the park, but Bayern's midfield, led by the experienced Stefan Effenberg, disrupted United's flow at every opportunity. Bayern's tactical setup was clear. They wanted to control possession and hit United on the counter-attack. Their defensive unit, marshaled by Lothar Matthäus, absorbed United's pressure and waited for moments to strike. The German side nearly doubled their lead when Carsten Janker latched onto a cross, his volley rattling against the crossbar. It was a warning sign for United. As the first half progressed, United struggled to find a breakthrough. Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole, so prolific throughout the season, found themselves isolated, unable to break past Bayern's defensive wall. Ryan Giggs and Jesper Blomqvist tried to provide width, but Bayern's fullbacks kept them at bay. Beckham's deliveries into the box were dangerous, but Bayern's defenders cleared everything that came their way. At half-time, Ferguson had to act. The players walked into the dressing room, knowing they had 45 minutes to rescue their treble dreams. Ferguson's voice was steady but firm. He reminded them of the comebacks they had pulled off throughout the season. Juventus in the semi-final, Arsenal in the FA Cup. They had been here before. Now they had to dig deep one last time. The second half began with United pushing forward with greater urgency. They pressed higher, moved the ball quicker, and forced Bayern to defend deeper. The chances started coming, but Bayern's goalkeeper, Oliver Kahn, was in inspired form. He denied Yorke with a stunning save, then tipped a Giggs effort over the bar. Bayern continued to threaten on the counter. Effenberg nearly put the game beyond reach with a powerful shot from distance, but Schmeichel made a crucial save. Minutes later, Janker attempted an audacious bicycle kick, which struck the crossbar again. United were still in the game, but time was running out. With less than 20 minutes remaining, Ferguson made his decisive move. Off came Blomqvist, replaced by Teddy Sheringham. Moments later, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer entered the fray, replacing Cole. The changes were bold, but Ferguson had seen something in Bayern's tiring defense. Sheringham's presence immediately made a difference. His ability to hold up the ball gave United a new dynamic in attack. Solskjaer, always a poacher, hovered around the box, looking for any opportunity. United bombarded Bayern's penalty area, throwing everything forward. As the clock ticked past 90 minutes, Bayern fans were already celebrating. Their players were on the brink of history, just moments away from lifting the trophy. But football is unpredictable, and United had one last act to play. In stoppage time, United won a corner. Beckham swung in the delivery, finding Giggs at the edge of the box. His scuffed shot fell into the path of Sheringham, who instinctively turned it into the net. United had equalized. The stadium erupted. Bayern were shell-shocked, their players struggling to comprehend what had just happened. United sensed blood. The momentum had shifted entirely. Less than 2 minutes later, they won another corner. Beckham delivered again. Sheringham flicked it on, and there was Solskjaer, stretching out a boot to divert the ball into the net. Tumon, Bontimonium. The impossible had happened. In the space of a minute, Manchester United had turned defeat into victory. Bayern players collapsed to the ground in despair. The final whistle blew, and United had done it. The treble was complete. Sir Alex Ferguson had masterminded one of the greatest comebacks in football history. His tactical changes, his belief in his players, and the never-say-die attitude he instilled in them had led to this moment. United's players celebrated wildly. Schmeichel cartwheeled across the pitch. Keane and Scholes, suspended but present, ran onto the field to join the celebrations. The Camp Nou was a sea of red, a moment of pure joy for United fans worldwide. As the trophy was lifted, the magnitude of the achievement sank in. Manchester United had completed the greatest season in English football history. champions of England, champions of the FA Cup, and now champions of Europe. A legacy had been cemented, and a night of footballing magic would be remembered forever. Manchester United was staring at defeat. The Champions League final against Bayern Munich had not gone as planned. Mario Basler's early goal had stunned them, and despite their best efforts, they were struggling to break Bayern down. The clock was running out. The dream of the treble was slipping away. But in the dying moments of the match, something extraordinary happened. What followed would go down as one of the greatest comebacks in football history. The tension in the stadium was unbearable. As the game entered stoppage time, Bayern Munich were already beginning to celebrate. Their players were slowing the game down, making substitutions to waste time, and their fans were singing songs of victory. On the United bench, Sir Alex Ferguson paced nervously. He had seen his team fight back countless times before, but this was different. This was the biggest stage of them all, and they needed a miracle. United had been relentless in their pursuit of an equalizer. David Beckham's deliveries from set pieces had caused problems, but Bayern's defense had stood firm. The German side had even come close to doubling their lead, with Mehmet Scholl and Carsten Janker hitting the woodwork. But United had something that could never be measured in statistics: an unbreakable spirit, a refusal to accept defeat. Ferguson had made his changes. Teddy Sheringham had come on for Jesper Blomqvist, and then in a final roll of the dice, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer replaced Andy Cole. 2 attacking substitutions, 2 final hopes of salvation. To the 4th official signaled 3 minutes of stoppage time. United won a corner. Peter Schmeichel, United's towering goalkeeper, made his way into the Bayern penalty area. Every single red shirt in the box knew this was it. One last chance. David Beckham, United's dead ball specialist, placed the ball down. He took a deep breath and swung in a perfect cross. The ball curled into the penalty area. Chaos ensued, and Dwight York tried to get a touch. The ball was half cleared by Bayern's defense, but only as far as Ryan Giggs on the edge of the box. The Welsh winger struck a low shot through the crowd. It wasn't the cleanest hit, but it had enough power to trouble the defense. In the middle of the chaos, Teddy Sheringham reacted quickest. The experienced striker adjusted his body and guided the ball into the bottom corner. The net rippled. The United fans erupted. The bench exploded in celebration. Sheringham had equalized in the 91st minute. The players barely had time to celebrate. There was still time left. Bayern, stunned by the late goal, tried to regroup. The United smelled blood. They had come back from the brink, and they weren't stopping now. They pressed forward with newfound energy, sensing that Bayern were reeling. The game restarted, and within moments, United forced another corner. Beckham once again took his position. The entire stadium held its breath. Could it happen again? He swung in another pinpoint cross, curling dangerously into the 6-yard box. Sheringham, the hero just moments earlier, rose above the Bayern defenders and flicked the ball on. Then in a flash, history was made. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the Norwegian striker known for his composure in front of goal, reacted instinctively. He stretched out his right foot and met the flick on with precision. The ball soared past Bayern goalkeeper Oliver Kahn and into the roof of the net. 3-2. Solskjaer sprinted away, arms raised, eyes wide with disbelief. His teammates chased after him, piling on top of him in celebration. The United fans in the stands were in absolute delirium, many unable to process what they had just witnessed. On the Bayern side, devastation. Their players fell to the ground, some clutching their heads in disbelief, others staring blankly into the distance. They had been seconds away from glory, only to see it stolen from them in a matter of moments. Oliver Kahn, usually so composed, stood motionless. Stefan Effenberg, their captain, looked shell-shocked. The Bayern bench was silent. their celebrations now cruelly cut short. Meanwhile, on the United bench, sheer pandemonium. Sir Alex Ferguson, a man who had seen everything in football, was in utter disbelief. He turned to his assistant Steve McLaren, then back at the pitch, unable to process what had just unfolded. The coaching staff hugged, screamed, and celebrated with unfiltered joy. As the final whistle blew moments later, the entire stadium was engulfed in red. Manchester United had done the impossible. They had turned defeat into victory in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. The players collapsed to the ground, some in tears, some laughing in shock. Beckham, who had provided the crucial deliveries, ran to join the celebrations. Schmeichel, who had rushed forward for the corner that started it all, raised his fists to the sky. Ferguson, still in shock, gathered his players. He knew the scale of what they had achieved. He had built this team, nurtured this squad, and now they had delivered the greatest night in the club's history. He embraced his players one by one, his voice drowned out by the deafening celebrations around them. In the stands, United fans sang in unison, their voices carrying into the night sky. The players lifted the Champions League trophy, the final piece of the treble. It was the culmination of years of hard work, heartbreak, and resilience. For Sheringham and Solskjaer, they would forever be the men who turned despair into euphoria. For Ferguson, it was his crowning moment as a manager. For Manchester United, it was the greatest night of them all. The legendary comeback would be talked about for generations. It was the ultimate example of why football is the beautiful game. In 3 minutes, Manchester United had written the most extraordinary chapter in their history, proving once and for all that they were never beaten until the final whistle blew. And as Ferguson would famously say afterward, with a knowing smile on his face, football, bloody hell. The celebrations in Barcelona began the moment the final whistle blew. Manchester United's players, coaches, and fans erupted in unrestrained joy. The new camp, which had moments earlier been a stage of despair and disbelief for the Bayern Munich players, was now transformed into a sea of red, with United supporters singing, dancing, and shedding tears of happiness. The players, many of whom had fallen to their knees in exhaustion, were now scrambling to embrace one another, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had just achieved. Sir Alex Ferguson, still in shock, took a moment to process it all. He stood on the touchline, watching his players celebrating wildly, then turned to his coaching staff. The usually composed and stern manager had a rare moment of complete emotion. He embraced his assistant Steve McLaren, then Brian Kidd, and finally each of his players as they came rushing toward him. The journey that had started over a decade ago had now reached its ultimate destination. United were champions of Europe again, and they had done it in the most dramatic way possible. The trophy presentation was a moment of pure euphoria. As the players lined up, the roar of the United fans filled the stadium. Peter Schmeichel, captaining the side in Roy Keane's absence, led the team up the steps, shaking hands with UEFA officials before reaching the glistening Champions League trophy. He turned to his teammates, lifted it high above his head, and the crowd exploded into cheers. Confetti rained down, the players jumped in celebration, and history was officially made. Back in Manchester, the scenes were just as incredible. Thousands had gathered in pubs, at Old Trafford, and in their homes to witness the final. When Solskjaer's goal hit the net, the city erupted, strangers embraced, drinks were thrown into the air, and chants of "Glory, glory Man United" echoed through the streets. It was a night that would be remembered for generations. The celebrations continued long into the night. The players, still in their kits, celebrated in the dressing room, spraying champagne and singing club songs. Interviews were conducted in between the chaos, with players barely able to contain their excitement. David Beckham, grinning from ear to ear, described it as the best night of my life. Teddy Sheringham, still in disbelief, called it a dream come true. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the man who had delivered the final, decisive touch, remained humble as ever, saying simply, "I was just in the right place at the right time." The football world reacted with astonishment. Legends of the game, pundits, and rival managers all paid tribute to United's resilience and never-say-die attitude. Even Bayern Munich's players, despite their heartbreak, acknowledged that they had been beaten by a team with extraordinary spirit. Franz Beckenbauer, a Bayern legend, admitted, "Football can be cruel, but tonight, Manchester United deserved it. They never gave up." When the squad returned to Manchester, they were greeted with a hero's welcome. The streets were lined with hundreds of thousands of fans, all desperate to catch a glimpse of their heroes. A victory parade was hastily arranged, with the players boarding an open-top bus to show off their 3 trophies. The scenes were unforgettable, flags waving, fans chanting, and the players basking in the adulation of their city. Sir Alex Ferguson took center stage, addressing the crowd with a proud and emotional speech. "This team," he declared, "is the greatest I have ever managed. They have written themselves into history." The victory not only secured Manchester United's place in footballing folklore, but also cemented Ferguson's legacy as one of the greatest managers of all time. The treble-winning season was a testament to his vision, his ability to build and rebuild great teams, and his unparalleled knack for motivating players to achieve the impossible. His influence on the club would be felt for decades, and this night in Barcelona would always be his crowning achievement. For the players, it was the peak of their careers. Many would go on to achieve more success, but nothing would ever quite match the drama and glory of that night. It was a victory that defined an era, a moment that encapsulated everything great about football. Years later, fans would still talk about where they were when Solskjaer scored, how they felt when the final whistle blew, and how Ferguson's simple words, "Football, bloody hell," captured the essence of the beautiful game. The 1998-99 treble-winning Manchester United team had achieved immortality. They had climbed to the pinnacle of club football, overcoming adversity, heartbreak, and impossible odds. Their legacy would endure forever, a reminder that in football, as in life, anything is possible if you never give up. Manchester United's treble-winning season was not just a story of dramatic moments and unforgettable matches. It was also a tactical masterpiece. Sir Alex Ferguson, a manager known for his adaptability, had crafted a team capable of handling any situation, whether it was a high-intensity Premier League battle, a strategic European contest, or a knockout FA Cup clash. His ability to tweak his tactics, motivate his players, and ensure flexibility throughout the season played a crucial role in Manchester United's historic success. From the very beginning of the 1998-99 season, Ferguson knew he had a special squad. It wasn't just about individual brilliance. It was about balance, unity, and a collective understanding of how to play in different situations. The foundation of his tactical approach was a fluid, attacking style of football, built around pace, movement, and precise passing. But within that structure, United had multiple variations to their play, allowing them to adapt based on the opponent. One of Ferguson's greatest strengths as a manager was his ability to change systems without disrupting the team's rhythm. While United's standard formation throughout the season was a 4-4-2, it was a highly flexible system that could morph into different shapes depending on the demands of the game. In some matches, especially in Europe, Ferguson opted for a 4-5-1, sacrificing a forward for an extra midfielder to gain control in the center of the pitch. This tactical tweak was especially crucial in matches against elite European opposition, where the midfield battle often dictated the outcome. The midfield was the heartbeat of United's tactical approach. Ferguson relied on a combination of power, skill, and intelligence in this area. Roy Keane was the enforcer, the leader who set the tone with his relentless pressing, tough tackling, and ability to dictate the tempo. Alongside him, Paul Scholes provided creativity and goals. His late runs into the box, causing endless problems for opposition defenses. Ryan Giggs and David Beckham operated on the wings, offering width, delivery, and an additional goal threat. Beckham's crossing ability was one of United's most potent weapons. His pinpoint deliveries from set pieces and open play were a constant source of danger, whether swinging in deep crosses from the right or whipping in deadly free kicks. He was a vital outlet for United's attacking play. On the opposite flank, Giggs brought flair, dribbling, and unpredictability, capable of cutting inside or stretching the defense by staying wide. Up front, the partnership of Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole epitomized Ferguson's attacking philosophy. Their chemistry was electric, built on instinctive movement and an almost telepathic understanding. Yorke's ability to drop deep, link up play, and make intelligent runs complemented Cole's sharpness in the box. Their movement constantly unsettled defenses, creating space for midfielders to exploit. However, Ferguson was never rigid in his approach. When a game required something different, he wasn't afraid to make bold changes. The introduction of Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as impact substitutes became a defining feature of United's season. Both players brought something different, Sheringham with his experience, intelligence, and hold-up play, and Solskjaer with his instinctive finishing and ability to make the most of half chances. The manager's willingness to trust his entire squad ensured that United always had multiple options to turn games around. Defensively, United relied on a solid yet adventurous backline. Gary Neville and Dennis Irwin were the full-backs, both capable of supporting attacks while remaining disciplined defensively. Neville, in particular, had an incredible understanding with Beckham, forming a formidable right-sided partnership. Jaap Stam was the defensive rock, a physically dominant and composed centre-back who could read the game brilliantly. His partnership with Ronnie Johnson provided a blend of strength and intelligence that was crucial in tight matches. Perhaps the most underrated aspect of Ferguson's tactical genius was his ability to motivate and instill belief in his players. He didn't just prepare his team tactically, he ensured they had the mentality to overcome adversity. His team talks were legendary, his ability to inspire evident in the way United fought until the very last whistle in so many matches. It wasn't just about having a plan, it was about making sure the players executed it with full confidence and determination. Wood's team talks were legendary, his ability to inspire evident in the moment in Teddy. One of the best examples of Ferguson's adaptability was United's Champions League campaign. Drawn in a difficult group with Barcelona and Bayern Munich, United had to find different ways to get results. Against Barcelona, they embraced an open, attacking game, resulting in 2 thrilling 3 draws. Against Bayern Munich, they had to be more disciplined, understanding that patience was key. The knockout rounds saw United mix aggression with intelligence, knowing when to attack and when to contain. The semi-final against Juventus was a prime example of Ferguson's tactical prowess. After going behind early in the second leg, United needed to take control of the match. Rather than panicking, Ferguson encouraged his players to keep their composure and stick to the plan. Roy Keane's inspirational performance was a direct reflection of Ferguson's influence. Keane took charge, dominated the midfield, and led United to a comeback victory. The team had belief, resilience, and a clear tactical structure that allowed them to thrive under pressure. Leadership on the pitch was another crucial factor in United's success. Ferguson had built a squad full of players who could take responsibility, both in good moments and in adversity. Keane was the obvious leader, a relentless force who demanded the highest standards from his teammates. His influence extended beyond his own performances. He set the tone for the entire squad, ensuring that complacency was never an issue. But leadership didn't just come from Keane. Players like Schmeichel, Stam, and Beckham all played vital roles in maintaining the team's focus. Schmeichel, as captain on several occasions, provided an authoritative presence at the back, barking orders and keeping the defense organized. Stam, despite being new to the squad, brought a calmness and assurance that settled the back line. Beckham, though not the loudest voice, led by example with his work rate and dedication. United's ability to adapt tactically was evident in the Premier League as well. The title race was fiercely contested, with Arsenal and Chelsea providing strong competition. There were moments when United had to grind out results, showing a different side to their game. The 2-1 comeback win against Arsenal was a defining moment, proving that Ferguson's team had the character to go all the way. In other games, they blew teams away with their attacking brilliance, demonstrating the full range of their tactical flexibility. The FA Cup run was another example of Ferguson's strategic thinking. Against Arsenal in the semi-final replay, he knew the importance of discipline and patience. With the game locked at 1-1, United needed something special. Ferguson's decision to keep Giggs on, despite his struggles earlier in the match, paid off when the Welshman scored one of the greatest goals in FA Cup history. It was a moment that encapsulated United's never-say-die attitude, an attitude that came directly from Ferguson's philosophy. As the season reached its climax, Ferguson fine-tuned his tactics to perfection. In the Champions League final, he knew Bayern Munich would try to control possession and dictate the tempo. Rather than allowing that to happen, United pressed relentlessly, forcing mistakes and creating chances. Even when Bayern took the lead, Ferguson remained calm, trusting that his tactical approach would eventually pay off. The late substitutions of Sheringham and Solskjaer were masterstrokes, both players scoring to complete the most dramatic comeback in football history. Looking back, Ferguson's tactics throughout the season were a blend of structure, flexibility, and psychological mastery. He understood his squad's strengths and weaknesses, ensuring that United could approach every game with the right strategy. His ability to adapt, make bold decisions, and inspire his players was the foundation of the treble-winning campaign. Ultimately, Ferguson's tactical brilliance was not just about formations or in-game adjustments. It was about creating a culture of excellence. He demanded the best from his players, built a squad capable of adapting to any situation, and ensured that every member of the team was ready when called upon. The treble was not just a triumph of talent, it was a triumph of Ferguson's vision, leadership, and tactical genius. Manchester United's historic treble-winning season remains one of the greatest achievements in football history, a feat so incredible that it would take another 22 years before an English club managed to replicate it. The question is, why? What made United's 1998-99 season so unique and so difficult to repeat? The treble represents the ultimate test in club football, winning the domestic league, domestic cup, and the biggest prize in Europe, all within the same campaign. The physical demands, the mental resilience, and the sheer quality needed to accomplish this challenge make it nearly impossible. While many great teams have dominated their leagues and even won European titles, very few have managed to balance all three competitions successfully in a single season. One of the main reasons it took over 2 decades for another English club to repeat this feat was the evolution of football itself. The landscape of European football changed significantly in the years following United's treble. The Premier League became even more competitive, with an influx of foreign investment transforming clubs like Chelsea and Manchester City into global powerhouses. The Champions League also became more unpredictable, with tactical innovations and financial disparities, making it harder for any single team to dominate both at home and abroad. Squad depth has always been crucial in competing for multiple trophies, and while modern teams have larger squads with incredible talent, the balance that Ferguson achieved in 1999 was extraordinary. The likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Teddy Sheringham played crucial roles despite not always starting, while Ferguson rotated his midfield with precision, ensuring Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, and Ryan Giggs were fresh for the biggest matches. In contrast, many modern teams struggle to maintain consistency when rotating key players, and injuries to a single superstar can derail an entire season. Another factor is the increased fixture congestion. In the late 1990s, while the season was already packed, the modern football calendar has become even more demanding. The expansion of international tournaments, the introduction of additional European competitions, and commercial obligations mean that top clubs often play upwards of 60 matches per season. Fatigue becomes a bigger factor, and even the best squads struggle to maintain peak performance across multiple competitions. Manchester United's treble was also a result of the club's mentality. Ferguson instilled a winning culture at Old Trafford, where no game was ever considered lost until the final whistle. The comebacks against Juventus and Bayern Munich were not flukes. They were a testament to the character that had been built over years of domestic success. Players like Keane, Schmeichel, and Beckham had an unrelenting drive that pushed the team forward in the toughest moments. When Manchester City finally repeated the feat in 2023, it was under different circumstances. The footballing world had changed, and Pep Guardiola's tactical approach was built on suffocating possession and precise control, a stark contrast to United's fast-paced attacking football. City's treble was an incredible achievement, but it lacked the same dramatic moments, the last-minute heroics, and the sheer unpredictability of Ferguson's United. United's treble also marked a turning point in English football. The Premier League had been growing in stature, but the 1998-99 season proved that English teams could dominate Europe once again. It was the first time in decades that an English club had lifted the Champions League, and it signaled the start of the Premier League's rise as the most powerful league in the world. Financially, the impact was massive. United's success boosted the global appeal of the Premier League, leading to increased television deals, sponsorships, and international fan engagement. It set the template for English clubs to build their global brands, and within a few years clubs like Chelsea, Liverpool, and Manchester City would follow suit in becoming European powerhouses. Tactically, Ferguson's United influenced a new generation of managers. His ability to blend youth with experience, to rotate his squad effectively, and to maintain a high-tempo, attacking style of football became a model for future teams. Managers like Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, and even Thomas Tuchel have spoken about the influence of Ferguson's teams in shaping their own philosophies. The treble also left a lasting impact on the players involved. For David Beckham, it was the defining moment of his Manchester United career, proving that he was more than just a celebrity figure. He was a world-class footballer, capable of delivering on the biggest stage. For Roy Keane, it cemented his legacy as one of the greatest captains in football history. His performance against Juventus in the semi-final still regarded as one of the finest individual displays ever. For Ferguson, it was the crowning achievement of his managerial career. While he would go on to win more Premier League titles and another Champions League in 2008, nothing quite compared to the magic of 1999. The sheer difficulty of winning the treble made it his most cherished triumph, a feat that no other manager in English football had accomplished before or would accomplish for another 2 decades. Even today, Manchester United's treble is seen as the ultimate benchmark. Every great English side since Arsenal's Invincibles, Chelsea's dominant Mourinho years, Liverpool's Klopp revolution has been compared to the 1999 team. None quite managed to replicate the drama, the resilience, and the sheer brilliance of that season. It remains the ultimate fairy tale in football, a story of never giving up, of last-minute miracles, of a team that defied all odds to write history. And even though it was eventually matched, the magic of 1999 will always stand apart. In the words of Sir Alex Ferguson himself, "Football, bloody hell,